The other one that I keep trying to figure out is, where does global really come? If we're talking about everything being done not as a human perspective, but a human and global perspective, where does that perspective reside?
And if global is, inclusive of ecology, then it is way beyond this present system, which is a social system.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think that may be one of the challenges, is we keep trying to figure out where do we put that, and it doesn't fit because it's beyond, it's above it, or whatever the right category is.
the example of that would be in India, what they're having a campaign around saving soil, which in the climate, as a climate issue, it's not being attended to. We attend to water, air, and pollution, but not to the soil. So this campaign is going on. But although it's taking place in India, but it has a global impact. And it's making people aware of, hey, we need to pay attention more on the soil level as well. So I think that is what it's meant, where it starts local, but it has a global impact that others can also engage with. And I'm complete.
Good.
So shall I stop sharing so that we can continue our discussions? Everyone look at their own mirror. Is that helpful?
Okay. Yes, okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
I think, well, can you make this small? Can you just make it like on my computer, I can make this small so that I can see faces too.
Yeah.
On my screen, just to the side of where the faces are, is two narrow little lines. And if I grab that with my mouse, I can make it.
Yes, you can
The
adjust
face
your
is bigger.
screen. Yes, so that you are half, because I think some people cannot access the mirror. So if we get out of the shared screen,
Oh, I see.
cannot see the mirror. Yeah.
Okay.
I think this question of where does global come in, does the word common distribution systems, does that bring it to a global level?
It could, but I think what Kevin said is we looked at this as a social process, and therefore, to a certain extent, it's limited to the human factor. And we're now trying to imagine not being limited to just the human factor. And so we're using global, we're not just talking about all the people in the world, although that is a critical factor. We're also talking about the planetary system and the planetary reality. And so how do we imagine that in our intention? It comes under the culture, the final meaning stuff up at the top, obviously, but it doesn't really, it's not explicit.
Is this what Nelson has been working on with their fourth dimension of environmental added into this?
But he went beyond that to the cosmos. So if you're talking about Nelson's set of triangles, he's gone to the cosmos. In between the two is the work that Jack Gillis has done, where the natural system and the social process then is one of the triangles in the natural process.
Do you have a copy of that you could send around? I was looking and couldn't find it.
I can look
Yeah.
for it.
I have a question.
Yes, Kenny.
Can I ask? So for ICA, what is the purpose for this discussion? What is our aim? What is our goal with all these discussions and social process? What is our goal for now?
Okay. Well, we were asking this question of what will it take to release human energy. So as we're facing the issues of our time, how do we release the human energy to move on those issues? That was where we started with this. And with that question, and we took that question out to 6 different conversations. And this was the response. So we're trying to figure out that what will it take to release, and plotting it on the social process was one experiment of working with the data. This is just an experiment. And which is why I was kind of trying to go through it a little faster to see, is this a good experiment? Is this helpful or not? Does this get us towards a clear understanding of what will it take to release our human energy?
So what do we want to use it for? I think that maybe that's what I should have asked as people in ICA. What do we really want to use this for?
Okay, Jim, do you want to step in?
Yes, Patricia, could you focus us on that little gray drawing that's over to the left of these triangles?
This one?
Keep going. That gray thing there, you see?
Mhm.
All right. So
The one with the circles on the top and the arrows going up?
that's right.
Okay.
So this is, Ken, actually one of the earliest drawings where we tried to say what we were about. And the circles up at the top or whatever, you see that arc? That's like our larger world and what's going on in our larger world. And that little box at the bottom, this was ICA, or back then Christian Faith and Life Community. And our aim was that we were going to work to enable local organizations to be effective in the larger world. So that's these many boxes and their efforts in the world. So when you're working with a community or a neighborhood, you're trying to help that community or neighborhood be more effective in dealing with the larger world, which includes, okay? So this is, and there was also this understanding, this is the arrow that runs around the side, that to do this, we had to also ourselves move into this larger world to see what was going on. And so we had some information of what we were trying to do. Okay. And now the little arrow at the bottom, this actually came out a little bit listening to the Courage to Lead studies we've been doing with people across Africa. We always neglected the question, or this is also the work that Kevin's been doing. We've neglected the question of what will it take for us to keep going long enough to actually make a difference. That's our own sustainability. Now, let me see how to say this. As somebody who's been in ICA for a long time and believes in ICA, I think our work is effective. And I'm very proud of the network of ICA and top people and what they do, okay? So effective that I don't really think about what worked and what didn't work, or what we might have been doing wrong, or what we might have been doing that, given the world in front of us now, is no longer relevant. And so we started this conversation, well, what is it going to, with the realization that for the most part, there's a sense that these change efforts that we're involved in aren't being adequate. That the human factor, whether that's organizations or community, we keep falling back on our own security. We don't address that void. You mentioned a void. And so our efforts are noble, but they're not getting all the way to what we need to be dealing with. Or that was a suspicion that we came up with. And so we've been trying to say, what's really required to release the human factor so that we can go back and say, how as top facilitators, as ICA people, as all these social change efforts, how do we look at what we've been doing and ask ourselves a question, what it's going to take to get those arrows actually dealing with what they need to deal with? Not just being pleased with our work, but actually getting to where, and maybe there's things that we've been doing a long time we have to give up. You know, Sunny was just talking about this work they've been doing in Colorado, working with neighborhoods. Yeah, of course, that's exactly the future that, you know, what ICA has always been about. But it's not like now that now you had a group of people figure out what to do in their neighborhood, it's fixed. No, it feels like there's a bunch of other stuff people are running into.
Mhm.
So it's trying to find it. So it's two things. One is trying to find a way to have this conversation, and two is to build the connections across ICA and TOP to have this conversation together. So it's both, it's build a network of people to talk with, and then it's to have these conversations as a way to you know, to think about like the work that Kevin is doing with these sustainability triangles for ICAs. What are we sustaining ourselves for? You see, in the various.
Thank you so much for this. I'm sorry, my question has extended the meeting, but thank you very much. It's
Does
clear.
that make sense though?
Makes a lot of
Yes.
sense. Yes.
Yeah,
makes a lot of
absolutely.
sense.
And
And
if
so
I
just so
was
you
to
know,
add-
Ken has been part of the group working on Kevin's triangles.
As has Larry and several others. Yeah. So it's a team.
And I wanted to add to what Jim said is some of us intuit that part of the new is in the cultural processes. And how do we take, and does this point that out? That was part of this. Does this, it's an assumption that it's part of the cultural, but does this point out and validate that a whole piece of our work in the future is in the culture? And how do we give shape to that? So that's another, for some of us anyway, part of this, the validating of and bringing to more consciousness with the Institute of Cultural Affairs is how do we work with that dynamic of culture? Why is it important? And so to weave that in, and clarity. I find I look at this and I say, well, I need to put into here the work I'm doing. How do I, you know, take my own initiative and look at it from the three perspectives? So that's another kind of part of the dynamic. So yeah.
Jan, my reflection, firstly, my apologies. You guys have been having this conversation for 2 years and I'm just now joining it. So I'm about 23 months and about 3 weeks behind, furiously trying to catch up with where it's at. I appreciated Jim's context about, so in a phrase, you know, it's what's the necessary deed today, as opposed to what we would like to do and stuff.
Yeah.
So I align fully with that part. I think where I've struggled today is and sorry, let me add the work in answering that question, you know, what will it take to release energy? The question coming from a human perspective makes sense. As far as we know, we are the only species capable, you know, or with those kinds of faculties that can ask and answer these questions. So I align with that as well. Where I struggled was when we were taking the responses to that question and putting it on a model that I have serious questions about its relevance today. Now, let me just, you know, explain what I mean by that. I remember every time we introduced shared a model, we would do a little context, the we being the ICA, about models frame one's reality. They're not our reality.
Mhm.
You know, the model has structure and function. And if the model isn't working, throw it out, find another one.
Mhm.
I think we may be at that point of throwing this one out and finding a more relevant one. So let me explain.
Mhm.
The social process is an anthropomorphic lens. And it worked until we began to have ecological crises. You know, maybe 40, 50 years ago, but we're only now catching up with it.
Mhm.
Here's an illustration of that. The resources, natural resources, is in the economic triangle. That tells me our perspective on natural resources is an economic use,
Mhm.
human use, as opposed to a sustaining system. I didn't mean to make a speech, but that's where my struggle has been this evening as we've been doing this plotting. I've enjoyed the conversation, but I could just see that this was not quite, the coherence was not there.
Mhm. Good. And
Remember, during Accelerate 77, they did create a sustainable development model, but it doesn't go very deep, and it doesn't have several levels, and it's really for an urban context. So it doesn't address agriculture hardly at all. But anyway, but there is there are other models floating around. So
Yeah. So what we have been using is still the triangle. We have human, environment, and economic. And for us, this is the model for sustainable development. So maybe we could see how we can develop it along that line if we think that makes sense, because the tripartite is really human beings, the environment, and then economic development. So if Kevin thinks that the way for political, economic, and cultural is updated, or we have moved past that because of the element of ecology, then we should just review, because the triangle is in my culture is a sustainable system. And then they have an appellation that says that any sustainable thing must stand on three legs. So we could always still use it the way the world is moving now, and it will still be useful for sustainable issues. Thank you.
thank you. And thank you for this conversation. This is part of what we hope to have, is this kind of exchange, and with exploring what will it take. And Kevin, look forward to, having a joint conversation here. I also wanted to point to the worldview is part of the culture. And what we've experienced in the last 30 years is a shift in worldview. So to be on, the full ecology, the full and the rights, the rights of rivers, the rights of animals is all part of this. And so it's making that new worldview explicit. That to me is still, it is pointed to in our culture dynamics. And once that worldview shifts, then all of these other things have a rearrangement also. So it's kind of one of the ways that we're looking here. So I'm interested in that, and I'm interested in also honoring our time. So I don't know, we're very much an ad hoc group here. And so the crossroads of how we expand that dialogue, or how we, are we a loose task force that we could say next time could look at, what you're working on?
We have two
Have-
other columns of.
And we have two more columns here. Yes, Jane.
I don't think any model is perfect, and I don't think we have to have perfect to move ahead. I think the question that I'm looking at is, in what way can the work that we're doing and we've done inform our thinking about what we need to do to release this human energy to address this immediate crisis we're in. And if we plot everything, the next two columns, and we look at it, then I think we can say, what is there in this that gives us some information that would be helpful? It may not be perfect, it may not be everything, but I think it could, I don't know that it will, but it could or might reveal something about where we need most to focus our energies. I think that's the purpose of it. The other triangles are offering new insights, and they are fabulous in their thinking. But this does offer us something, and I think it would be a shame to have the perfect get in the way of the good.
Yeah, so really we shouldn't be focusing on perfection. I think there's really nothing perfection, because progress of humanity, things will change based on our consciousness. And so, but then is the human being who is doing all this. So Kevin's discussion on the fact that we should be looking at what is now on the plate, and how we should, and how it is the human factor that is the cause for this, the mess we find ourselves in. So if we could add that to the what is already going on, and to see to what extent we could do something, because since the human is the factor, is the one that do all the thinking, coming up with all the technology, what can we do with that human factor to be able to make the world a better place for all of us? So I think we shouldn't be focusing on perfection, but then when there are new information, we should see how we can bring all of them in, so that at least we have a kind of model, let's say a model, to start working with all ICAs. I'm complete. Yeah.
Look, this analogy of perfection and good has just thrown a spanner in the works here. I'm going back to Jim's context about the necessary deed.
Yeah.
That's where I was coming from. For us to be able to put our fingers on the necessary deed, we need to look beyond a social construct.
Okay.
To an ecological one. Otherwise, I think we're going to miss some of the necessary deeds we need to do in the next couple of years.
I think, Kevin, that may be a different question. It's a necessary deed to release human energy.
Absolutely, yeah. Now that is the one I'm also focused on. I'm clear this is about human energy, because that's the species we all are in this room and can focus on being. Yeah.
So this to me is an example of what we're trying to do with this global research network that we're trying to set up, is to have little bits of time, because you people are busy doing important work. We're all busy. And it's not like we can stop the work we're doing and go aside for 10 years and figure out what's really going on. But we need some way to make it easier for us to look and see these things. And for me, one of the accomplishments is we get to the point in a conversation where we're just a little confused. We've got a lot of really good answers and some really great thoughts, and we're all a little bit confused. That means we're doing research. So I thank you very much for this, and we'll keep going. And I think one of the implications is we need to do some exchange based on our experience working in these environmental and climate change areas, what frameworks we've been coming up with. Jack Gillis had one, Nelson Stover had one. I've had, and across our network, ICA and TOP, we've done a lot of work. Ken mentioned three things to stand on to look at those frameworks and see what we're learning about that will be very helpful to us. I've put into the chat, a colleague of ours, Herman Green, has been working in this area, and he's launching a study group on Zoom that looks quite interesting. Herman, when he left the Institute, got a law degree, and one of the things he's been working on is publishing a textbook on Earth law, how you go about enabling rivers to have legal rights and other species and stuff like that. So this is an interesting thing I just ran across. He's going to be doing the next month and a half. But anyway, we need to share more. Jan and I, and I want to say this about the difference between the good and the perfect. Our colleague, Lauren Liga Brica, isn't here. She's got a new job, and she's working on how to apply top facilitation. And the work they're doing is creating more human workspaces. But the other thing she's run into is improvisational theater, which is sort of based on the assumption that there's a level in us that knows how to respond to what's going on, because there's a level in us that's aware of all the signals way beyond our language, way beyond our science. And when we tap into that level, then we know what's going on. And for those of you who do facilitation, you experience that all the time. You know, you ask the right question in a conversation, all of a sudden, the people in the group, they know what they're talking about. And they're talking about real things and making, you know what I mean? This is kind of the glory of being able to do top facilitation, is these moments when all of a sudden people are tapping into that level. So maybe Lauren's going the right direction, just doing improvisational theater. And anyway, we'll give you reports on that as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll probably schedule another session next week, Jan, are you thinking? And finish these up. And then we've got a meeting on Wednesday with our larger group to suggest steps and next steps with all this.
Yeah. So
in the chat, some of the
short one. Larry has been doing quite a lot of work on environment, community development. So he confirmed some of the things we've been doing in Ghana. So he will be very happy if he could also share his perspective on that. It was very useful for me when we went through that community development program. So, Larry.
Okay, and Kevin and Jane, and then I have a suggestion about the next time we might meet. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that in the chat is Nelson's triangles, Jack's triangles, and the Accelerate 77 version as well.
Excellent. Thank you. This is the kind of exchange, that we're within the research network hoping happens. Jane, did you have
No.
Okay. I was wondering if this is timing wise good, and we would just look at next Tuesday again at this time, and how that, Jim, does that work? It's pretty early for you, but this.
I got a couple of snotty replies. from colleagues in California who didn't want to get up that early.
Okay, so,
But other than that, I think
I cannot, Evelyn and I can both not do Tuesday. She's doing a thing with Nepal with Jan.
oh yeah,
And and I'm doing a thing with colleagues from Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan. So, but other than that, I don't have any data other than that about Tuesday.
okay. Can I try Wednesday?
We have a top approaches group meeting on Wednesday, which is one of our global ICA task forces. Of course, we could have that be on the new environmental triangle we're going to adopt into our top methodology. No,
How
we
about
have some other
Thursday?
things.
Thursday.
Evelyn's got a Thursday meeting, but I'm open.
Okay, and
No.
what,
I can't, but then you can go ahead,
you can't, okay. Well, maybe, should I pursue this or should we just add some other times? What, Monday? Monday next week? Oh, no, Monday, I got Nepal too. Friday. I forgot it's the same.
I
Friday.
don't usually have your calendar on my screen, but right now I
All of those times are good for me. I never schedule things at 6 a.m. here.
I'm not busy that day at 6 a.m. either. That's
I have food bank scheduled Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time. So should we try for Thursday?
Thursday, coming week, you mean?
The 14th.
the 14th.
Okay.
Before,
but
yeah,
I can't, that's Holy Thursday, actually.
oh, it's Holy Thursday. We're getting into, yeah,
You mean which religious context is it Holy Thursday or is
the Christian
I think
context.
it's just habit.
it?
Oh, we might need to wait 2 weeks, it sounds like.
I am okay Tuesday, 2 weeks from now, which is the 19th.
Okay. Okay, well, let's put that tentatively, Tuesday, the 19th, and these times, wherever that
Yeah,
is.
that's
for
okay
you.
for me too.
And it'll be 8 a.m. Eastern North America time. Okay, excellent. And any cross fertilization of ideas of sharing is good. So if Jim, if you and I can stay on for just a minute, and anyone else who wants to see themselves as part of a coordinating of this research network, yeah, just we can stay on. So
And-
just for a few more minutes.
And I want to send a shout out to Yahweh, who's participating during her commute to work.
Oh, very good.
From work. It's
From
work.
nighttime. She better be going home. If she's going to work, we're all in trouble.
Okay. Well, and just a deep thank you for showing up to spend time here with these questions. And so, and a good day or night wherever you're at. So, as we say in Ojibwe territory, Bama Pi, peace in your going, peace in your going. Or salam.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Larry, I miss you, but Larry and Evelyn, I'll see you sometime. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Patricia.
Hey, chat.
Maybe
Patricia,
we can
thank
stay,
you.
Jim.
Thank you, Janet, and thank
Yeah.
you, James.
Yep. Good. Thank you for being with us. Yes. Yeah.
I'll stay a few minutes to chat with this coordination team.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Well, great. And we've got a time 2 weeks from now. What,
19th. Shall we plot the
19.
date, 19th?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
I keep being fascinated with what's happening and would like to have more clarity myself, but as Jim says, this is the edge of research. So I just, yeah. Jim, why did I think I wanted to, so what has just happened? Maybe that's it. What has just happened? Let's start there.
But I think, I'm looking at it, I think we cannot rush the work because we're getting different people at every session and everyone has to catch up. You know, so the group very much wanted to just stay with one column.
Yes,
Yeah.
they didn't want to push further, faster. Yeah, at least with this. Yeah.
As someone who was joining it for the first time, the catching up was not difficult with the chart. So the chart was very useful. You know, my excitement about wanting to be here today was when I first heard the question, and it was some time ago, may not be 2 years ago. And I said, wow, now that's a big question. That's a bold question, the kinds of questions we need to be engaging around. And then seeing the responses to the question. And as I said, where I struggled then was this move to the plotting on the triangle. And I'm still trying to catch up with the purpose and function of that little piece.
Yeah, I think we are also trying to.
I think what's been interesting to me in these sessions is listening to the conversation as people are going about looking at the triangles. Our question has been quite inexact. You know, like what highlights, where would you put it, whatever like that. But it's done two things for me. It's opened the door for people to talk about where these changes are happening and how they and examples from their work where they're running into these dimensions that I found very helpful. And then the second thing is the messiness of it. I mean, I was hoping we would have like one place for each one of these 8 or 32, but
Not happening.
but they roam all over, which to me is important. I mean, the insight I'm coming up with is these are all systemic. That's not a good word. It's not a matter of having one place to work. And I want to work on that, what that means. And maybe, you know, and one thing it means, I think it is correct. We need a broader grasp of if we're going to use a rational screen, we need to find ways to have a broader grasp of what that rational screen might be to work with. But it also may be that hoping for a rational screen is actually part of the old things in some form of improvisational theater. We used to call trusting our intuitions, or Ken's, you know, grinding yourself in the void, whatever. It is the key to us moving future. I don't know. I just find it a helpful opportunity to chat with people from different places in the world, and hopefully we're going to come up with better ways to have the conversation so that we can involve people more broadly.
Okay.
I think today.
Because I'm
because
concerned,
we're-
because my concern is my 12-year-old grandson who's still asleep.
Okay,
uh,
yes.
Who doesn't, who's growing up in this world, and what it's going to mean for him.
Mhm. Pat,
Yeah, no, because today we were looking at structures, so I think it got messier. But I recall the last session we had where we were looking at something else, and we landed up, my group, with looking at social artistry in community, in the cultural box.
Mhm.
And for me, that pointed to some real work that could be done that's not being addressed in Malaysia, you know, because I'm always looking for stuff that I can do in Malaysia. So,
Yes.
so you know, it pointed me at things that we could play with, perhaps, and develop here so that we could move forward in some way, you know. So I think depending on which column we are looking at, the output will be quite different. And because today we were looking at systems, it didn't seem enough.
Okay.
Perhaps if we had added those circles of the eco environment, you would find more connections. But you know, but we did try. We did join things to the natural resources, and we even wrote the word earth at the bottom and had arrows going there. So it does point to a need to, you know, grow that framework for some of the elements that we're looking at, I think.
Okay. Well, good. We will, I think then, are we doing 2 more times, or are we like in 2 weeks, or are we going to try to take both columns? And
Why
then
not
maybe,
you divide the group
okay, right away.
and
Yeah.
because by next week, I think you will have enough people who know what to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if Michelle can join us, you know, there can be 2 of us working the arrows, you know.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
And 2
So we need
groups,
2 working arrows. Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, to do that. And then 2. Okay, that's
Then
helpful.
we can report back, you know. So
Yes.
we can start that off.
Okay.
Perhaps.
And then perhaps we have one more conversation where we look at everything we've done. We try to figure out how to pull that together. Yeah. Okay. And then, you know, and maybe part of this then is also, Kevin, you having a time when you share this research you've been doing and that team. Yeah.
It's a completely different model, because that is just simply about the ICA as an organization, its sustainability. So it's not even the social process. It's a component of it. If anything, it's Jack's triangles, or I find the Accelerate 77 circles to also be useful, because it is inclusive of the environment.
Okay, I got
Not
you.
the whole ecology, but the environment. Yeah.
But the environment. Okay. And now I understand the 77. Okay. So we'll see. We've got 2 more sessions, and then we'll see from then where we go with this question.
I was looking at the Miro board just to see where you plotted A through H on their own, not the 4 items below, but just A to H. Because I think that starts to give one and some anchors, whereas the detail, that's when it was starting to get messy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know if anywhere on this board you've just plotted A to H. And Jim's point about the question being inexact was important. You know, it's because I think we were all answering different questions with the plotting.
Yeah.
So
And
if it is about where it releases, you know, where would which part of the system would get released?
Okay. Or I'm going to just get both these. What part of system released? Or the other way where we're looking at the question is acting a part of a system that would help release other parts. So it was that was more, I think where we were at was this, if we would do some work here, it would release other pieces.
Yeah,
And
that's a
so
good one.
somewhat like the pressure points, when we had the pressure points, I think, and I am aware, I didn't give that fuller context. I started the context, but there is more of that context that we didn't give in terms of the network that we're working with. So, or trying to build here. Yeah.
That's a good analogy. So if we were to say these 1, 2, 3, 8 were pressure points,
Mhm.
where in the social process or whatever,
Yeah.
system model use do they most show up? I mean, they're going to show up in multiple places, but a pressure point is
Mhm.
this one point at which you exert action.
Yes, yeah. Creativity, looking for that. Okay. Okay, now I need to ask one last technical question, which is, oh, there, I just saved the chart. So I saved all that wisdom. Good. Okay. Well, good to have you join us, Kevin. And I have fond memories
you
of
for
us
it, yeah.
working together. 10 years ago it was. I
Was
think.
it? Yes, it was 10 years ago. And Nepal was 10 years ago. My
So,
gosh.
yeah. So anyway, okay, Jim, we'll be in touch. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. And
Stay-
hopefully, I mean, I took down, so Tuesday at 10 p.m., would you believe it? We still have a number of these ICA team meetings, but Tuesday I don't, so that's good.
Very good.
If it was a Wednesday or a Thursday, it gets
Thursday,
to be
when we're-
challenging.
Yeah, we got the right date. Very good. Okay.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you all. I enjoyed it.
Thank you,
Take
Kevin,
care. Bye-bye.
Jim, and
Bye.
Jen, thank you so much. Good
Yes.
night.
Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia, stepping in there. And hi, Jim.
Hi.
Can we still talk? We are
Yeah.
just, I just saw this morning the piece about Lauren and her, where she's going to be putting her energies. So, yeah, maybe we let this sit a bit and see where we get to next.